Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this game's with your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Wanted Dead. The line between bad trash and enjoyable jank is a fickle one, and one Wanted Dead loves to ride. So if you like bad games, is this 2023's best? Let's find out. Wanted Dead is a third-person action game that attempts to fuse swordplay and gunplay together, and the only game I could think of in that vein was that Grindhouse game, Wet, back on the PS3, which, does anyone remember that game? Well, anyway, in Wanted Dead, you play as Hannah, a cyborg warrior part of Zombie Squad, a police sub-unit that does all their most dangerous missions. Some kind of cyborg revolution is happening to try and take down a megacorp, and you're square in the middle of it. While the story itself is nothing to write home about, what's most notable is how hilariously bad the voice acting and script are, which we'll get to later. Gameplay-wise, the alleged core mechanic is its third-person combat. The game has 5 missions, with the 5th being almost 3 times longer than the rest, but you'll be doing the usual character action thing of going into a room full of dudes, killing them, and then going to the next linear room until all of the dudes are dead, and then you fight that dude's boss. Combat itself is a blend of melee and guns, though clearly they want you to prioritize melee. You have your usual assortment of parries and super parries for big red attacks, and even have an unlimited handgun incorporated into your combos. The real goal of almost all fights is to knock enemies into an execution state, which you can do by either hitting them, cutting off limbs, or gaining enough adrenaline to do a gun fu move. The game has a Bloodborne-esque damage system where hitting enemies in melee gives you health back, and executions give all your temp health back. So yeah, you should be doing that. This is all supplemented by a skill tree, which you'll fill up around mission 4 if you're diligent. I said allegedly about combat being the core mechanic because this game feels like it was made by 10 different teams, as it's full of mini-games. There's a ramen eating rhythm minigame, a Yakuza-style karaoke game that uses the entire German version of 99 Red Balloons, and an honest-to-God full space shmup game in the style of the Sega Genesis. And of course, there's a claw machine to get collectibles, which I spent tons of time on. And that's Wanted Dead more or less. A somewhat clunky third-person slasher shooter with a lot of rough edges and even more minigames. So what do I like about Wanted Dead? Well, the combat actually gets pretty engaging around the second mission, with you learning its slow and deliberate commitment to attacks and parrying into chaining executions ends up being really satisfying. Additionally, I love the bad voice acting and script. I understand this is subjective, but they're bad in that perfect way that makes them incredibly entertaining, like Stranger of Paradise, meaning I never wanted to skip a cutscene. And lastly, this game has some absolutely weird decisions around aesthetic, character, story, and more that may cause a few eyebrows to raise, but somehow it all fuses together to be incredibly memorable and gives the game a ton of personality. When it comes to the bad, to start this off, if I were to be 100% objective, this is a bad game. First off, while the combat gets okay around the game's midsection, it doesn't evolve once it clicks, and new enemies are just meat sacks rather than challenges, meaning you'll master a kit and have nothing fun to use it on, particularly those mediocre bosses. Additionally, the game feels outdated in every aspect. I swear the cutscenes are 720p, the models look like they're from an up-res 360 game, and the game can't decide if it's a shooter or a slasher half the time. And lastly, as mentioned, this game is almost more mini-games than combat, and that is not me joking around. Most mini-games last 5 to 10 minutes, with stuff like a claw machine sucking up a lot of time, and with only 5 combat missions, it means the meat of this game is surprisingly short. As you know, I rate games on a 3-point scale, must play, maybe consider, and don't bother. I've mentioned a lot recently that I really enjoy those 7 out of 10 AA games. This is not that. This is a bad game that manages to be entertaining, which is also something I really like. Stuff like Magus or Deadly Premonition are games with lots of problems, but are still worth checking out for their strong personalities if you can stomach the jank, and I think Wanted Dead joins those ranks. All of its weird flaws roll together into something weirdly unforgettable. Now, if you aren't into the so bad it's good genre, then you should definitely avoid it, but if you're like me, then Wanted Dead is absolutely worth checking out on sale. That's all I've been. Thank you so much for watching. What are your thoughts on Wanted Dead? Did you play it? Are you going to give it a shot? Do you prefer your games to be, good? Please let me know in the comments. But regardless, go out there and maybe, just maybe, check out Wanted Dead.